We've all heard the saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? In my case, I came across a job position on Twitter, of all places, that definitely seemed too good to be true, but I wanted to figure it out for myself. Disclaimer, I do not recommend you do this at home. That's why I messaged this guy so you don't have to. And I'm going to be sharing with you in this video what happened, what he said to me, and how he tried to scam me. So buckle up and let's get started. So I first messaged this guy on Telegram, right? About a translation job that he was promoting on Twitter. And as always, what I get back is just the same old copy and paste bullshit that he probably sends to 100 different people each day, if not more. And I must have been baiting other scammers around the same time because I completely missed this guy's response. Also, side note, I completely didn't realize that it had been this long since I talked to this scammer. Like, where has time gone? Really? But hey, a month later and this dude still needed the help. Sweet. But of course, he directed me to message this other guy, Frederick. Though he did later on, this George guy, he did try to hire me himself, but we'll get to that later. And when I reach out to this Frederick guy, surprise, surprise, he sends me another copy and paste message. Do you see a pattern yet? And he also pulled out another page of the scammer book and he asked me for a bunch of my info. So I gave it to him, some real, some fake, whatever. And then followed a bunch of copy and paste bullshit that I'll let you read. I personally never read these anymore, but nonetheless, I told him I could do it. Of course, I had to do a test job first, which in of itself, it's a scam. Please don't do test jobs unless you are okay with wasting that time. And if you do test jobs, please watermark the crap out of them so they can't use it for free without paying you. You're welcome. Back to the scammer that was trying to get me to do a test job for him. He actually sent me a text to translate that was in Spanish. Now, if you don't know, I'm Portuguese and I speak both English and Portuguese. I definitely don't speak Spanish, and I told him I was from Portugal. So I was like, hey, I don't speak Spanish, like obviously. And his response was translated to Portuguese then. I was like, I can't because the text is in Spanish. Like, what do you want me to do with it? But then I think he ended up sending something in Portuguese or English so that I could actually understand it and translate it for him. And what followed is probably the most asshole client conversation interaction that I've had in the 10 years that I've been a freelancer for. And this asshole in particular wasn't even going to pay me. So brace yourselves. So at this point, I asked this dude, like, hey, it's nearly midnight. Can I do it in the morning? And he's like, what do you mean? It's just a test. By the way, it's a big pet peeve of mine whenever a client references something as just, like just another post, like just a test, because it just undermines the whole work. So I explain again that it's late and I'm not even at my computer anymore because midnight. And this dude goes, is that an excuse? And I'm like, no, bitch. It's actual real life. It's actually midnight and I'm laying in bed right now. I shouldn't even be responding to this dude, but whatever. So I asked him just casually, like, am I supposed to get out of bed for this? Like, is that what you really want me to do? And I kid you not, this dude has the audacity of saying this. If you don't mind, At this point, I just ignore the guy and I go to bed and go to sleep like I'm supposed to. I ended up getting him the testing in the morning as one should. And by the way, I used Google Translate to do that. I wasn't about to spend time translating something for a douchebag. But then he goes, "Well done, sir." I'm not a sir, but I understand English is not your first language, but still, I think that's an easy one to get right. He then sends me an NDA to sign. So I decide to play dumb and make him go back and forth explaining me stuff because I'm confused. Eventually I do send it to him with some bogus information you can see right here. And guess what? They hired me. I would have never guessed that. And not only that, they immediately give me a task to perform for them that pays a total of $5,300. And I'm like, sweet. Easy money, easy cash. But then he asks me about a permit card on Telegram. And of course, I would have to pay for the permit card. I mean, that's just scammer 101. If you didn't know, a lot of freelance scams ask you to pay for your permit card. It's usually around $50. So never do that if someone asks you for it. But I gotta admit, this dude is probably one of the easiest scammers to stall because I just kind of changed the subject on him and he went along with it. I'm guessing he must be new to this or something because he was totally out of the blue. Or maybe that's just his style. I don't know. Who knows? So then I brought up the card thing again, but I pretended I didn't know I have to pay for it because why would you have to pay for an ID card? Honestly, like if the company is willing to pay you $5,000 for a translation job, like wouldn't you think they can cover the cost of the card? It's just a bit weird. And I think at this point they had sent me another email with the ID card prices, but I just played the confused card once again to waste his time a little bit more. Turns out his colleague had made a little error in the email. No big deal, of course, like it's fine, we're all friends here. At this point, I actually asked him to call me so he can explain me how I can pay him because I truly wanted to be a good freelancer, a good employee, if you will. So roll that clip.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm good. Thank you for calling me to help me.
No problem with that. So how may I be of assistance to you?
I guess I'm just wondering, like, what I should do next. Like, what are the next steps?
Okay, you received the mail, I believe.
The one that talks about the permit card?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, and you saw the available payment method stated on the mail, I believe.
Okay, yeah, it says PayPal, Skrill, which I don't know what it is, bank transfer,
Okay.
cryptocurrency, and pay here.
Yeah, okay, so do you have the $30 available for the deposit?
Yeah.
Okay, and how do you intend making the deposit? What methods do you have available?
I would prefer doing a bank transfer if that's possible.
Okay, hold on, I'll contact you shortly. I need to make a request from the company's payment server so I can generate the account details for that, okay?
Okay, and should I expect you to contact me on email or Telegram?
I would prefer we contact on Telegram, that would be much faster.
Okay, yeah, it's easier for me too.
Okay, now I'll contact you shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, on a call, he did say I could pay via bank transfer, right? Like, it wasn't just me who heard that, you heard it too, right? But now, suddenly, all they have is SEPA, S-E-P-A, I don't know, Revolut, which I think he meant Revolut, but okay. And Zen, to be honest, I don't have any of these, like, in actual real life. I've only heard of Revolut, but still I've never used it. This is actually very common, I find, where they tell you can pay whatever, whichever way, and then they, double down, and then they change their minds and ask you to do it some other way. I'm guessing, like, these are their preferred methods or something, and they don't like bank transfers or PayPal. I've tried that one as well. And if you've seen my last scam video, you probably know I pushed the bank transfer method because I have a template for it for a fake payment slip. So that's what I always push for. And guess what? They did end up sending me a bank account to transfer to. So that's a win, right? So I go ahead and I send them the receipt and I ask if they need my address to send the card to. And they asked me to send my address over email, but then they go back to asking about the project. You know, that project that they told me about that was going to pay $5,000. Yeah, I've been ignoring it for a while. So I decide to play dumb again and I pretend I never got the project email. And we go on like that for a while, but then I remind him, don't I have to wait for the card to start working? Like, you would think so if you had me buy the card before. And he just goes, oh, you may start working already. It's fine. And I'm like, then what the hell was that card for? Why did I pay for it? Well, apparently it was to prove I was working with them. Make that make sense? And then he takes that opportunity to ask me if I'm certain about the payment because he hasn't received yet. Big shocker. So I just say it might take a little bit longer because, you know, it's an international transfer and all that. And then this dude proceeds to nag me all weekend long with messages and calls and all that good stuff. And I'm sorry, but I don't respond to real clients on weekends. Why should I answer any of your bullshit? Like, for real. And he once again has the balls or the audacity to tell me, well, you shouldn't let me know you weren't going to work weekends. And I'm like, I assumed that you wouldn't either because normal companies don't, I guess. Then he went like, we are a remote team, so we essentially work all the time. That's a red flag in and of itself. Like, even if this wasn't a scam job, like, boundaries, man. But turns out, that same weekend, I also got this pretty little ID card. Doesn't it look legit? And okay, I had to show you this one message because just look at it. Like, if you are busy, you gotta let me know. Like, man, if I'm busy, I'm not gonna be available to let you know. It's like asking someone, are you asleep? And then they'll only answer you if they're not. And once I get back from my well-deserved weekend, I asked him, but what about the physical card that I was supposed to get in the mail? And he then says, don't worry, dear friend, everything is going as expected. I just want you to trust me and try as much as possible to comply with the company terms, okay? So, of course I say, okay. We then go back and forth a little bit more about some email that I didn't get. And then he asks, may I see your permit card? And I'm like, what do you mean? You sent it, so why don't you have it? But okay, I sent it to him. He then gets suspicious about my payment once again because, of course, he still hasn't gotten anything. So he asks me to provide proof of my bank transaction history. Invasive much? Oh, but don't worry, it's actually the company who needs it. It's not him. He totally trusts me. He's my friend. After all, I can say that with a straight face. After that, I think he just gave up. But remember that guy George that we talked to in the beginning? The one that actually referred me to talk to Frederick? Well, let's go back to that conversation because it turns out George is still hiring. So this is what happened with George. Well, first of all, I went back to him and I asked him if he still had that job. And turns out, of course, he did. Why wouldn't you? So he once again sent me the typical copy and paste for asking for more details. We've gone through that twice already, so I'm not gonna bore you again. And by the way, can we take a moment to acknowledge how non-smooth this transition was? Like, he responded to my message with a normal message and then he goes straight to copy and paste and it doesn't make sense together. And then I start to wonder, are these the same person? Are George and Frederick the same person, or are they just colleague scammers and they're in it together? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments because I'm definitely not sure. And then he sends me another pretty legit document to sign. Does it ring any bells? Although this time the document does look different, so maybe it's different people after all? I don't know. But on the other hand, once Frederick stopped responding, because these were at some point overlapping and going on at the same time. Once Frederick stopped responding, George also stopped responding. So they're either the same person or they're very closely in cahoots with one another. And if you think this is a one-off case, you'd be terribly wrong. I've done a lot of videos on freelance scams, and I always have a lot of fun talking to them, but it also gets a little bit on my nerves. There's this one where I actually confront the scammer and ask why they're scamming me. You can watch this one right here. And obviously, don't forget to share this video with other freelancers you may know or in your social media, because I want as many people as possible to be aware of this so they don't fall for it. I'll see you in the next video.